Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business. Looking forward to talking to Franki Bagdade. Franki, it's great to connect with you. You're a clinical social worker and an educational consultant. You have two companies, Fab Consulting and Franki Bagdade Therapy. And today, we're going to talk about, you specialize in ADHD and autism and anxiety, and behavior, and supporting children and teens and parents and educators, as well as camps. So let's kind of dive into that. What should people be thinking about? What should parents be thinking about, maybe that they're not thinking about when it comes to these topics?
Oh, that's a great question. So this morning, I actually was on the phone with a journalist I love, Melinda Moyer, wrote a great parenting book. And we were talking about what parents may want to consider if they have a neurodivergent child. So a child diagnosed with ADHD, autism, maybe a additional or different disability, and how some of the more typical parenting programs out there may not fit the bill. And really what it comes down to is getting to know your child. I love this phrase of be curious. Take a moment, step back, watch them, let them share with you what they need, and recognize who they are, not who you think they should be.
Yeah. All right, good. And so, what you're talking about a little bit is taking a step back and being more an observer and not trying to, so talk about that. So how does a parent who is maybe trying to figure it out sit back and be that observer that you're talking about?
First of all, it's really challenging. And I get stuck, going the wrong direction with my own kids. I'm always honest about that.
Yeah.
The main principle that I really talk about in my book, I talk about with professionals, I talk about with parents, I remind myself, is this concept of right-sizing your expectations. Listening to the professionals, if you're lucky enough to work with a team, figuring out who your kid is, even if it's not exactly where you thought they would be. Maybe they're a 10-year-old who in some ways has some skills more like a 7-year-old, and in other ways has skills like an adult, and really recognize who they are. Once you've done that, it really sets you up for more success as a parent, for less frustration and disappointment. So when parents come to me and they're really struggling, of course they want solutions, right? Like, who doesn't? And if I could tell them how to, stop all the difficult behaviors immediately, man, I would be really wealthy. But it really does take a slow, observant approach. Mm-hmm. And it's really a mindset shift. And then everything does start to flow.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the mindset shift. You wrote a book, your parenting book. I love my kids, but I don't always like them. And so, that's a little bit of a mindset shift. I have a 17 and a 20-year-old. So what do you mean when you say that? Like, what does the title of your book mean?
The title of my book means a ton to me. I'm someone sitting here with two masters in, essentially human behavior, and parenting is tough for me. And I think it's really important that I admit that, so everyone out there knows it is okay. It's expected when it's tough for you. And it's okay that sometimes parenting is not what you're liking. It's okay. When the balance is off and we're finding that we're not really enjoying our children the way we'd like to, then it means we need some support, whether it's a shift in the way we're looking at things and the way we're approaching, whether it's getting a professional like a therapist or your school involved. We need some sort of support so we can learn to enjoy our children for who they are again. And, my kids, they're on the book. They've approved every little anecdote I've shared about them. And I say, they feel that way about me from time to time too. It's okay, as long as it's not all the time.
Yeah. Let's talk about support and asking for help. I'm a business coach, Franki, but, I find that asking for help is kind of a universal difficulty. And so how do people, because, how do people, how would you guide and advise people to ask for help?
So a few different ways. The number one suggestion is to listen. We are often as parents in situations where we have hard information to listen to. It may be at a parent teacher conference, it may be an unexpected parent phone call or phone call from camp. I've been on the other side making those calls many times in my career, and I've gotten them as a parent. So to listen, to ask questions, to try to check our defensiveness at the door, because experts who have the privilege of seeing lots of different kids at once, they're going to see things through a different lens, and it can be really valuable. So listen. Then schools are a great resource in connecting you with the greater community. So your school social worker or counselor may have some ideas for you of therapists out there or parenting education workshops that would be a good fit, knowing your family and your children.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that you've mentioned a couple times, because I think whether it's parenting or in business, managing your family, managing people, et cetera, active listening. And so somebody who's is very well studied in this world, how do you guide people to be better active listeners?
So I talk a lot about problem solving with your kids, giving them the opportunity to share their concern, teaching them how to listen when you share your concern, and then trying to meet in the middle. And it's interesting you talk about that. It ties into business perfectly.
Yeah.
So recently my husband was able to travel with me. I did some speaking in Toledo, and typically he's home managing the household when I'm speaking. So he doesn't always get to hear me. And we were talking a lot about this concept of how to proactively and collaboratively talk with your children when there's behavior that, is not desirable. And afterwards, he had just finished a week-long leadership training. He manages teams and is a business development guy. And he was like, it's the same. The principles are the same. So not only are you having more buy-in from your child or your teen, which you really need when you're not liking something going on, by hearing their opinion and having them be part of it, but you're modeling the kind of person that you hope they can be when something's not going right with their college roommate or with a colleague or even with a boss, how you can handle that and say tough things, but in the right way.
Yeah. I find that's right. Saying tough things in a tactful manner, actively listening. These are all so important. And I love everything that you're talking about. And I read a book 27 years ago. It was called Living Your Yoga. And what it talked about was it's easy to do yoga when you're in a yoga studio and on the mat, but can you live it off the mat? And so let's talk about how do you live this off the mat?
That's a great question. So I love yoga too. I don't get into that studio as much as I'd like, but I remember many years ago a teacher sharing that the hardest pose was Shavasana. Am I saying it right? I don't even remember, where you're laying still. And that really resonated with me because I don't lay still. I am constantly moving and thinking, and my gears are turning. And that never went away from my mind. I was always thinking of that. And it's such a great metaphor for life, but it's really great for parenting. By stopping ourselves and laying still, sitting still, whatever, and not always thinking about how do I fix this? How do I stop this? But just being still, it really can be a game changer in understanding our kids.
Yeah, I love it. You, as we said, you're the author of a book. What was the journey? Talk a little bit about the journey. I wrote a book. I'm writing another book, and people always ask me, what was it like writing a book? So give kind of the 1-minute version of, your journey of writing your book.
Writing my book was awesome. I think similar to your book, which I've been reading, I'm a storyteller. I think that's really how I like to teach. And it's combinations of kids and teens I've met through the years and mine, all kind of woven together in little vignettes to help the audience understand my philosophy of parenting, how to get to know your kids, how to right size your expectations, how to collaborate together, what to do when things just aren't working, what to let go of. And I love to share it through stories.
Good. I love it. All right, let's do a quick speed round. A book that's had the biggest impact on you.
Oh my. I love Driven to Distraction by Edward Hallowell about ADHD. Awesome.
All right, good. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
I love it.
Say it all the time.
Yeah, no, I love that one. Finish this sentence. I believe.
Oh, God. I believe that our weaknesses can also be our greatest assets.
I agree. Tell everybody where they can buy your book and connect with you, Franki.
Awesome. My book is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the big box stores, bookshop.org if you want to support local stores. Bookbeat in Oak Park is one of them that sells on bookshop.org, and frankibagdade.com. The hardest thing will be spelling my name correctly, and everything is there.
And your ideal client is?
My ideal client is someone who wants strategies for ADHD and figuring out how to use their strengths to work with their weaknesses, or in a therapeutic way, working on anxiety, ADHD, emotional regulation, anything that they want to meet their goals.
I love it. Franki, I appreciate you being on the show. Think community, you know, I'm a business coach. I work with successful people who are stuck. I get them unstuck to grow their business, from solopreneurs to fortune companies and everything in between. And I love this podcast because I have guests like Franki on who can help me with my mission to get people unstuck and grow. Franki, you shared a lot of great things. I'll just highlight a couple things, which is be a really great active listener, ask for help, be curious, and always be on the lookout for support. So I appreciate your insight. Thanks for sharing it today. And tell people one more time where your website or where they can connect with you.
frankibagdade.com, on all the social media channels, Franki Bagdade. Love to see you guys there.
Awesome. And I can be reached at jondwoskin.com. Thanks, everybody. Franki, thanks. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on the show.